There are just 10 days left in the legislative session here in Colorado, and Colorado's Constitution says lawmakers have just 120 days each year to get their work done, assuming there is no special session.
Well, here to discuss what's been accomplished, what time is running out on, our reporters Marianne Goodland from the Colorado Independent and Jim Anderson from the Associated Press. And thank you both for being here.
Happy to be here.
Happy to be here. Thank you.
So one of the things we've already foreshadowed in this show is the primary bill. It was one of the biggest debates last week at the Capitol. Why is it not as simple as, hey, we should have a primary, everyone's clamoring for a primary, it's done? It's not that easy. Why?
Well, is anything easy here? You need the buy-in of either the major political parties as well as the third political parties. There's been some expressions of interest and intervention on the part of libertarians, what have you. You need to determine whether it shall be presidential or should include lower offices, down-ticket races in this thing. And also, you might have those who are opposed to the open primary because the largest block of Coloradan voters are independents, 37%. Registered.
Right.
Do you admit them? Do you allow them to temporarily register for a primary vote? And if so, how do you do so? And how do you prevent what could be interpreted as fraud? Say, I vote Democrat, I vote Republican, I go back to independent.
So it's not that cut and dry is what you're saying. Like Mile High Name seems to be an easier subject to tackle.
Much more fun to tackle, perhaps. The idea here is that to keep that Mile High Stadium name, no matter who owns the naming rights on it, as you probably know, Sports Authority is being sold off, so the decision has to be made about what happens to that Sports Authority name. But lawmakers and former Mayor Wellington Webb are both very adamant that Mile High Stadium needs to keep that Mile High name.
Every year we talk about wasted time on bills, and as much as I like the name Mile High, and I still call it Mile High Stadium, period.
Yeah.
I'm not getting paid to call it anything else.
We do.
Why is this being legislated? What should we be spending time on instead?
To say that this isn't something worthy of lawmakers' attention, everybody has their pet projects and their pet issues, and this is a pet issue for those lawmakers who are running that bill. And you see bills like that all session long, pet issues that you cannot believe somebody's actually spending time working on. Things like whether or not hunters could wear pink. I mean,
right.
Yeah, which was a bill that passed through earlier in the session and actually was signed into law by the governor. So everyone's got their funny little pet issues. Even if it seems silly, somebody's asking for it.
But time is running out. We know their priority lists from the very beginning. So what haven't they dealt with? What needs to be dealt with? We're talking 10 days.
Aside from sticking with Mile High for a second, pesticide regulations involving marijuana. Whether those who live out of state can buy more than a quarter of an ounce. That is currently being debated in the legislature. We're still in the process, even though we're 3 years in, of developing a regulatory framework for the medical and recreational pot industry. And the feds still are watching, in a way.
And so that's tax revenue, too.
It's tax revenue, exactly. So that's one of the priorities that are still sticking out. At the very beginning of the session, we had what most people refer to as the hospital provider fee. It's a Medicaid fee paid by hospitals that is doubled or matched by the federal government, goes back to hospitals. And I'm going to defer to Marianne on many of this details on this. But that has come up, and that was brought up on day one by Governor Hickenlooper. We must have action on this fee. And
where is it?
It finally went into debate on the House floor yesterday, just 10 days before the end of the session. This has been hanging over the legislature's head since day one, as Jim mentioned. It passed out of the House on second reading debate last night and was voted out by the full House this morning, with 5 Republicans joining the legislature's 34 House members, or House Democrats, in passing the bill. So
will it be dealt with by the end of the session?
It will go over to the Senate. Whether or not it gets beyond its first Senate committee seems unlikely. The President of the Senate has been adamant that this is not going to go anywhere in the Senate, and we haven't seen any indication from him that he's changed his mind.
So we know there's a Republican senator that's going to support this.
Correct.
And as long as it avoids any committee he's on, it's okay that it's going to fail. That doesn't make sense to me. If you took it to the whole Senate, it's going to pass.
Correct.
So take me through the inner workings of how it gets assigned to a certain committee, particularly to fail.
There is a committee in both the House and Senate that is called the State Affairs Committee and is viewed by most lawmakers as the place where bills are sent to die from the opposite party. In the House, it's where Republican bills go to die. In the Senate, it's where the Democrats' bills go to die, or bills that aren't liked by the leaders of either one of those chambers. And it's likely that the hospital provider fee will wind up in that State Affairs Committee. That's a 3-2 committee, 3 Republicans, 2 Democrats, and if the President of the Senate has said this thing goes down, it goes down.
Okay, we have 1 minute left. So what will the legislature accomplish in these next 10 days?
In the next 10 days? Well,
That's hard to say.
you know what? There will be debate. The HPF could go to die, but the dialogue has begun about the Taxpayer Bill of Rights, which we're now into its 23rd year, and the restrictions and or limits it imposes on, most importantly, the budgeting process. Yes, taxpayers are entitled to refunds. Voters voted this in, but it's a larger philosophical debate about how do we budget for a state that is rapidly growing,
Right.
and its needs are rapidly increasing. Transportation, roads, schools, and higher education. Number 2, affordable housing. This is yet to come up. It was discussed on day 1. We're on day 109, 110, something along that lines. It's a crisis in the metro area. The Denver mayor has declared it his #1 priority. There has been discussion of introducing credits for families and also assuring developers that they won't face liability for defects if they go into the affordable housing market.
And we're going to have to take a report card after the session ends to see if this gets done and have a longer conversation about that. But for now, thanks for joining us, Jim Anderson and Marianne Goodland.
Thanks
You're
for
welcome.
having us.
Thank you.
We'll be right back.